This is question number 1 on the geometry study guide. So we want to find the volume. So you can use your reference sheet to find the volume. Remember, volume is how many cubes can fit inside of a figure. So since volume is since a cube is three-dimensional, it has a length, a width, and a height, you need to multiply 3 dimensions together to get the volume of something. So I'm going to use the formula for volume. Volume is equivalent to length times the width times the height. So I'm going to substitute these values in for my length, width, and my height. So I'm going to use 4.5 for my length. I'm going to multiply that by 5 meters for my width. And I'm going to multiply that by 1.5 meters for my height. Now you can't multiply fractions like this, so because when you multiply fractions, a fraction is a part out of a whole. So since a fraction is a part out of a whole, we have to put all of our fractions into part out of whole format. Meaning if you have a mixed number, meaning you have a whole number in front of your fraction, you have to change it into an improper fraction. So that's what we want to do here. So to change a mixed number into an improper fraction, we have 4.5. So we want to rewrite 4.5 as an improper fraction. So since we have the whole 2 over 2, we want to multiply. We have that 4 whole times. The whole of the fraction is 2, and we have it 4 whole times. So you will multiply that by 4, and that'll give you 8 halves. And then we will have to add 1 half to that, and that'll give us a total of 9 halves. Remember, when you add fractions, your denominator stays the same. So we can rewrite 4.5 as 9 over 2. Now the easy way to think of that is just to multiply 2 times 4, which is 8, plus 1 is 9. Your denominator stays the same. This is the proper way to do it. Now we want to multiply that by 5. We can change 5, a whole number, into a fraction by putting it over 1. 5 divided by 1 is still 5. Just like 9 divided by 2 is still 4 and 1 half. So we're just making an equivalent number, but that number must be in part over whole format. Then I'm going to multiply this by, I want to change 1 and 1 half into an improper fraction. So 2 times 1 is 2. 2 plus 1 is 3. My denominator stays the same. I can bring down my equal sign, and I can bring down my volume. So since my left side of the equal sign is just volume, if I evaluate my right side, I'll have my answer. So how do we multiply fractions? We have to multiply 9 meters times 5 meters times 3 meters. So we have to multiply these numbers together. So I'm going to do 9 times 5, which is 45. And then 45 times 3 is going to give me 135 for my numbers. And then in my numerator, I have meters times meters times meters. And since I have meters as a repeated factor 3 times, I'm going to put an exponent of 3. For my denominator, I'm going to multiply 2 times 1 times 2, which is 4. So now I have to divide to get my final answer. And it says write your final answer as a mixed number. So I can't put this in like this. So I have to divide because a fraction is a form of division. So 135 divided by 4 is going to give me my final answer. And that is going to be, so I have 3 left over. So since a fraction is a part out of a whole, I have 3 as my part, and I wanted a whole before. So this is going to be my answer that I'm going to put here. 33. 33, and for my fraction, 3/4. Now this is equivalent to 75 hundredths, but it clearly said put a mixed number. If you put a decimal, I'm pretty sure it's going to mark it wrong. So keep that in mind. Make sure you pay attention to that. So for this question, we have to correct the corresponding base with the correct height. So we have to pay attention to our shape. Our shape is a triangle. So remember that a triangle is half of a rectangle. So this is a rectangle. Let's say we have a rectangle that's 2 by 4. That means we have, and we want to find the area. We have 2 squares going across the base or the side, the width, and then we have 4 squares going across the bottom. So the area of this rectangle is going to be 4 2 times, or length times width. The area is going to be a total of 8 squares. So if we want to figure out, if we cut this in half and made it a triangle, 2 matching right triangles with the same base and the same height, the area is going to be half. So the formula for a triangle is going to be half of the formula for a rectangle. So we can multiply the base and the height and divide it by 2, or divide it into 2 equal parts. And we should know dividing by 2 is, since we can't have division next to division, we can multiply by the reciprocal of 2, which is 1 over 2. So the formula that's used for this question right here is area for a triangle, because this is a triangle over here, is equivalent to 1/2, I got my 1/2 from here, times the base times the height, because a triangle is half of the number of square units as a rectangle. So if we look here, we have area is equivalent to 1/2 times the base 15. So when the base is 15, what is the missing height? So if you come over here to your triangle, this length right here is 15. This length is 15. You identify your base and your height by the right angle. So the right angle that's connected with 15 is right here. So the height that's corresponding with 15 is going to be this length, and that length is 21 centimeters. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to choose 21 centimeters. So when the base is 15, the corresponding height is 21. Let's do the next one. Well, and if we figure out, if we take half of 15, we use our formula. Half of 15 is going to give us 7 5/10, and if we multiply that by 21, that'll give us 157 5/10. Let's go to the next one. So our formula for a triangle is still the same, because a triangle is always half of a rectangle. So I have 1/2 times 30. So when 30 is my base, what is my corresponding height? If I come over here to my triangle and outline my 30, my right angle is right here. So when my base is 30, the corresponding height, the dimension that's connected to that right angle, is this length right here. And this length right here is 10 5/10. So when the base is 30, the height is 10 5/10. So if I want to figure out what the area of the triangle is, which it should be exactly the same, I will evaluate. I had my formula, then I substituted 30, the base in, with the corresponding height, and then I multiplied half of 30 is 15, and then 15 times 10 5/10 will give me my same answer, 157 5/10, and then centimeters times centimeters is going to give us centimeters squared. So I'm still going to get the same exact area, 157 5/10. Now let's do the last one. So the last one, when our base is 42, what is the corresponding height? So my dimension that's 42 is down here. You identify your base and your height by the right angle. So the right angle that's connected with 42 is right here. So the bottom of the right angle runs into this length, and the side of the right angle runs into this length. So this is going to be the dimension of our height. And this length is right here, 7 5/10. So when the base is 42, the height is 7 5/10. And if I evaluate, if I take half of 42, let's just do it right here. If I take half of 42, let's say you don't know what half of 42 is. You can just change 40 into a fraction by putting it over 1 and multiply across. 1 times 42 is 42, and then 2 times 1 is 2. And then this will give us 42 divided by 2 is 21. So half of 42 is 21. Now look at this. Multiplying a number, multiplying by 1/2 is the same as dividing by 2. So you can just write this as 42 divided by 2. And you'll get 21. Half of 21. Half is to split something in half. So we have 21 times 7 and 5/10. And once we multiply that, we get the same exact answer, 157 and 5/10. So notice that all of the triangles have the same exact area, so it doesn't surprise me that they all, because it's the same triangle, why would you be surprised that they all have that all of the base and the height produce the same exact area? It's the same triangle. Why would it have a different number of square units? So as long as you pair the correct base with the correct height using the right angle, you will get the correct square units. And remember, square units is two-dimensional because you have to multiply 2 dimensions. So you always want to multiply 2 dimensions. So this one right here, the triangle only has one area. The triangle will only have one area. Nothing else makes sense. All right, so that's that one. So Michelle, whoever is planting a garden, it has the shape of a right triangle. He wants 4 plants for each square meter of area. How many plants does he want in the garden? So this question is focusing on the number of plants. But in order to get the number of plants, we have to know the area, because the number of plants is dependent upon the area. So we have to find the area, the number of square meters here. So if we think about it, he wants 4 plants for each meter. So 4 plants is going to be equivalent to 1 square meter. So I'm going to put meter squared. So let's go ahead and we're going to use that as a conversion factor, or use that information. So before we can do anything here, we have to find out, well, how many square meters is this rectangular garden? So I'm going to use my formula for a triangle. The formula for a triangle, any triangle, is equivalent to 1/2 times the base times the height. So if I want to find the area, I have my formula. After I have my formula, I need to substitute. So the area of the triangle is going to be equivalent to 1/2 times the base times the height. So you identify your base and your height by the right angle. So my right angle is right here. The length that's connected to the right angle is going to be this length, which is 5 meters, and this length right here, which is 12 meters. If you use 13, you will definitely get the wrong answer. So since 12 is an even number and I can take half of it, I'm going to put 12 as my base meters, and then I'm going to use 5 meters as my height. Half of 12 is 6 meters, and 6 times 5 is going to give me 30, and meters times meters is meters squared. So if I since I've evaluated my right side, if I bring down my equal sign and then bring down my area of a triangle, we can say the area of the triangle is 30 meters squared. So now, since I know that I have 30 square meters and I want 4 plants for every square meters, you can use this as a conversion factor, or you can just use equivalent ratios. You're starting with 1 meter squared and you're going to 30 meters squared. So you multiply by 30. So you want to multiply 4 plants by 30, and then you'll have your answer. So 30 square meters is going to be equivalent to 3 times 4 is 12, and then add the 0. So 120 plants. You could also use this as a conversion factor. So we want to convert 30 meters squared into plants, the number of plants, which is our answer. So we can put this over 1, and we can multiply by the conversion factor, which is right here. So since I have meters squared in my numerator, if I want meters squared to cancel out and I want it to convert into plants, I'm going to put meters squared in my denominator. So I'm going to put 1 meter squared in my denominator, and then I'm going to put the for every 1 meter squared, there are going to be 4 planks. So since I have meters in the numerator, meter squared in the numerator, and meter squared in the denominator, meter squared divided by meter squared equals 1. So that is going to cancel out, and I can multiply across. So I have 30 times 4 plants is going to give me 120 plants for my numerator, and for my denominator I have 1 times 1, which is 1, and 120 plants divided by 1 is 120 plants. 120, whichever method you like to use, be my guest and use it. Alright, so for this question we want to find the area of the trapezoid. So what we can do is decompose. Decompose means to break apart. So if we look, they already have the line here. So if we break this apart into a rectangle and a triangle, we can get the total area. So the triangle plus the rectangle is going to be equivalent to the entire number of square units for the trapezoid. So if I put both of those together, it's going to give me the area of my trapezoid. So the formula that I need to use for my triangle is area of a triangle is equivalent to 1/2 times the base times the height. And the formula that I need to use for a rectangle is base times height. So let's come over here to our trapezoid and figure out what are these dimensions. So if I look at this, I have my triangle runs from here. So this total length right here, from here to here, is 11. So I know that the base of my triangle is definitely not going to be 11. Now what I do know that the height for both of these is going to be 9, because they both run from here to here, which is 9. That length is 9. But my length is not going to be 11 for my triangle. So what you have to do is figure out what is the length for your rectangle. So the rectangle length is from here to here, and that length is 7 yards. So I know that for my rectangle I can use 9 yards times 7 yards, and that'll give me a total of 63 yards times yards is yards squared. So since from here to here is 7 yards, that means all the way up from here to here is also 7 yards. So this is 7 yards right here. So 7 and what number will be equivalent to the whole 11? Well, 7 plus 4 yards, because 11 minus 7 is 4. So that means if this length from here to here is 7, because a rectangle have 2 sets of parallel sides, this length right here must be 3 in order to, this length right here must be 4 in order to add up to the entire length 11. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, the total distance from here to here. So for my triangle, I'm going to use 4 as my base, not 11, because 11 is too long. 7 plus the 4 is the total 11, right? So I'm going to do half of 4 times my height. My height is 9. Half of 4 is 2, and 2 times 9 is 18. And then I have yards times yards is yards squared. So I'm going to go ahead and add these two up, and that'll give me my final answer. So 63 yards plus 18 yards is going to give me 81 yards squared. So that's going to be your final answer. And area is 2-dimensional, so keep that in mind. So to find the area of this polygon, you have to decompose it. And you can decompose it into a triangle and a rectangle. So a triangle plus a rectangle is going to be equivalent to the original polygon. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 edges. So if we think about it, the rectangle, if I outline my rectangle, I'll have the dimension 5 down here, 5 centimeters. by 8, 5 by 8, 5 by 8, 5 by 8. So I have my dimensions for my rectangle, 5 by 8. So I can eliminate, if it's 1/2 in front of it, that's saying that this is the dimensions for the triangle. Eliminate that one. This one doesn't even have 1/2 in it. Eliminate. This one doesn't have 1/2 to consider my triangle. Eliminate it. I only have this answer left without even working it out. But let's just keep working it out for learning purposes. So I know if I have 8 squares 5 times, this is going to be an area of 40. It's a rectangle base times height. The area is 40 centimeters squared. Now what about my triangle? I know the formula for a triangle is 1/2 times the base times the height. So if I look at my figure, I have 5 from here plus another 5 from here, which is this length. Rectangle have 2 sets of parallel sides, plus another 5 from here. So the base of my triangle is going to be 15. And then perpendicular to that is going to be 4. My right angle is right here. So if I use 15 as the base, then I need to use 4 as the height because they are perpendicular to each other. So since I can take half of 4, I will put 1/2 times 4 times 15. So I'm looking for something along those lines. So look at this, half of 15 times 4 for my triangle. And then for my rectangle, I have 5 by 8 or 8 by 5. And I added those together to get the total. So that is the correct answer that you need to pick. D is the correct answer. Surface area. So surface area is the area of all of your surfaces of the three-dimensional figure. So I hope you know the name of this figure. You name a figure by its base. So remember, prisms have 2 base and pyramids have 1 base. So you have to find out what do you have 2 of or 1 of, and all of your lateral face need to be the same exact shape. So since we have 2 triangles, we will need either 3 rectangles to connect with that, or that's not a good one. So this is a triangular prism. If it was a triangular pyramid, we will have a triangular base, and then our lateral face will be made up of triangles. That is not what we see here. If it was a rectangular pyramid, our base will be a rectangle, and our lateral face will be made up of triangles. That is not what we see here. This is not a rectangular pyramid. If it was a rectangular prism, our base would be a rectangle, and then we would have lateral face that are rectangles that's connected to it, and then we'll have another base. So it's not that either. So you have to recognize, you name a figure by its base. So since we have 2 triangles and all of our lateral face are all rectangles, you have 1, 2, 3 rectangles to connect to each edge of the base. This is called a triangular, because you name a figure by its base, prism, since all of the lateral face are made up of rectangles. So with that being said, let's go ahead and do this. So I'm going to start by drawing a net. So I'm going to draw my base. So my base is a right triangle. So I'm going to start with my right triangle. So I have this right here. I'm going to put my right angle right here. So since my right angle, which is right here, is connected to 12 centimeters, so this is not drawn to scale because the 12 centimeters clearly looks smaller than the 5. But so that means it's not to scale. Not to scale just means that the dimensions may look one way, but they are indeed different. So I'm going to put 12 right here, and I'm not going to put my units to save some space. And I'm going to put 5 right here because the units that's connected to my right angle is 12 and 5. My right angle is still here, and then I have my hypotenuse, which is going to be 13. Now I am going to draw a lateral face to connect to each edge of the base, just so you can see where I get my dimensions from. So this is going to be my, let's say this is the bottom base. the bottom face. Now it's not the base is a triangle. So this is going to be our bottom base. The base is 12 and the height is going to be from the bottom base to the top base. So the height of all of the lateral faces is going to be exactly the same because they're the space between your top base and bottom base, which in this case is 8 centimeters. So I'm going to put 8 right here. And then I'm going to go ahead and draw my other base. I have 2 identical base. Oops. Two identical base, so I'm going to draw a right triangle right here. Now normally I would just draw my lateral face right here and right here, but I'm not going to do that because I want you to understand why does all of my lateral face have different dimensions. So I'm going to draw my lateral face coming from my base. So this edge of the triangle is 13. So this lateral face dimensions is going to be 13 by 8 because the height of all of the lateral face is 8. And then I'm going to draw a lateral face. So this is going to be my front face right here. This is my front face. My other one is going to be my back face, which I'm going to do in red, which is going to be this one back here. So I'm going to just draw that from this one. So the base of this face is 5 and the height is going to be the height of all of the lateral face, which is 8. So now I'm ready to find my area. So I know that a rectangle is the total number of square units. Area is the total number of square units. So if I have 8 squares 5 times, that's going to give me an area of 40 centimeters squared. And then over here, I have 8 12 times. So if I have 8 12 times or 12 8 times, that's going to be a total of 96 squares. So the area of this face is 96 centimeters squared, and the area of this face is 40 centimeters squared. And this one is going to have a different area. So this lateral face over here is going to be 8 13 times, or you can say 13 squares 8 times, and that's going to be a total of 104. You can use base times height to find the area of rectangles. Now we need to find the area of our base. So you identify your base, your length and width by your right angle, your base and height by the right angle. So I'm going to use area is equivalent to 1/2 times the base times the height. So 1/2, I'm going to use 12. The 2 dimensions that's connected to the right angle is 12 and 5. So you have to use 12 and 5. If you use 13, you're definitely going to get the wrong answer. Half of 12 is 6, and 6 times 5 is 30. So the area of both of my base is going to be the same, and it's going to be 30. Since it's a prism, you're going to have 2 identical base. So now I'm ready to find my surface area, which is the area of all of my surfaces. So I have 104 plus 96 plus 40 plus 30 plus 30. So this is going to be all of my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 face, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now I'm going to consolidate. So I know that 4 plus 6 is 10. So this is going to be 100. And then I'm going to add this to that. And then I'm going to add, so 300, and then since I multiplied 2 dimensions, centimeters times centimeters, it's going to be centimeters squared. So that is how you find the area. Now, why does all of my lateral face have different areas? Because the edges of the base are different. So each lateral face is going to have a different base multiplied by the height 8. So since this edge of the triangle was 12, this lateral face had to connect perfectly to it, so the base of the lateral face is 12. Since this edge of the triangle is 13, and this lateral face have to connect perfectly to it, the base of the rectangular lateral face is going to be 13 as well. And since this edge of the base, this edge of the triangular base is 5, it has to connect perfectly with this lateral face. So the base of the lateral face is going to be 5, and it needs to be multiplied by the height 8. So keep that in mind. that every lateral face must connect with the base.